What's your name, by the way?
Carlos, by the way.
Carlo.
Hey, Carlos, can I hit the mute on the
Yeah,
iPad?
Sure.
Just hit the mute
Yeah, I'm
right?
checking the audio, everything was okay. Carlos.
Carlos.
All right.
I think I know. I've heard your name, but I just didn't know.
Just
interrupted only by World War II. Over 400 students from 80 public high schools traveled to Norwalk to take part in this 3-day event. Participating students came from Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, as well as Connecticut. During the day, Thursday and Friday, these students were split into 3 groups, representing orchestra, band, as well as choir. They then spent 6 to 9 hours each day here in City Hall rehearsing pieces and working with an assigned conductor. After these very intense rehearsals, 2 very well-attended public performances were held in our concert hall here at City Hall, one for orchestra and band, and a second for chorus. Norwalk's rich tradition in music and the arts was an excellent fit for this prestigious festival. While our students have participated in NEMFA, this is the first time that Norwalk has hosted. An event of this magnitude takes many, many months of planning and many volunteers to execute. This was truly a citywide effort and a true community effort coming together. Our thanks goes out to Mayor Rilling for agreeing to host the event at City Hall, as well as to the city, central office staff, who graciously accommodated hundreds of high school musicians in the lobbies, hallways, as well as the conference rooms. We also thank the many parents, teachers, as well as community members. Mike Barbas, I know that you hosted as well, who participated in many ways, large and small. When they weren't rehearsing, out-of-town students spent time staying with Norwalk host families. Well over 200 area residents hosted them in their homes, providing meals as well as transportation to and from City Hall. Your hospitality showcased Norwalk at its finest. The Board of Education tonight would like to specifically recognize members of the McMahon community whose leadership was critical and crucial to the festival's success. Leading the way was Brian McMahon teacher Frank Arcari, who worked closely with McMahon parents, Jean Starkman, Julie Bigos, Christine McGee, on all of the details that were required. This team spent countless hours working with NEMFA, recruiting volunteers, identifying who the host families would be, finding sponsors, arranging dinners, and many other items. Other who were instrumental in making the event run very smoothly include McMahon teacher Scott Benson, Pavlina Schreil, Ron Secchi, volunteers Tracy Kovacs, and Shay and Eileen Secchi, student Sophie Starkman, president of Tri-M, the Music Honor Society. We all here appreciate the considerable time and expertise as well as effort it took to make this event a true success. On behalf of all of us here tonight on the Board of Ed, we'd like to congratulate to all who contributed to the 2017 New England Music Festival. Mike, do you want to add anything? I know you're one of the hosts.
No, but it was really great. I had these three boys from East Lyme who were the most interesting kids I've come across, and it was great. But I really think it is hard for us to understand, and I just know because one of the organizers is someone I know quite well, how much work that Gene Starkman and Christine McGee put into this to find families to host. And when we had the orientation actually in this room, and I knew all these people that were here, and a lot of them weren't parents, but were people that, are customers of Christine's. And she grabbed them in. And so it was really, and for those older residents of Norwalk who hosted these kids, they had an awesome time. It was really great. I mean, I know we can't and probably don't want to do it every year, but it was it was really special. And I'll tell you, my kids, they went to this game room place on Westport Avenue that I didn't even know existed. And, they really took advantage of everything Norwalk had to offer. So I think it was awesome, and I think we really do owe, these two volunteers who really no one even knows that how much work they did and how much they did for our city and spreading the good word, and, they are to be commended.
Right.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any?
We have one public comment.
Okay.
And that is Mary Jordan.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Mary Jordan, 9 Mott Avenue. The Ed Spec committees are being approved and talked about this evening, which marks yet another step on the path to better school facilities for our students. We want to thank local board members and local and state leaders for all the work they've already done to navigate the tricky waters. I'm hoping it gets easier from here on in, and we are excited at the progress ahead of us. I am also eager to point out my joy at hearing the way Mr. Thomas at Columbus Magnet School has organized his the input into his committee. He's using both his school governance council and his appointments to the Ed Specs committee to really distill the voice of his building. He's working very hard to network, and I really congratulate him. The NFT congratulates him on his intelligent strategy to bring the voices and opinions to this important discussion about his building. I mean no disrespect to the PONUS Ed Specs committee, which also looks very excellent. I just don't know the details. Mr. Thomas took some time this week to discuss with me how he's working things out to have a small number of people on a committee but actually include a great voice, and it sounds really wonderful. Voices should be heard, varying opinions respected, even if they cannot always be accommodated. Being heard is important. I would also like to draw your attention to the Norwalk Education Foundation Excellence in Education Awards Dinner, which is coming up. It's to be held on April 27th. It was first proposed by Dr. Adamowski over a year ago. This event has been created by the Norwalk Education Foundation, the school district, and the Federation of Teachers to honor the accomplishments of teachers in our district. We have nominees from 12 schools. It has been a challenge to create a brand new event, and we have had many people working on it. I would like to make sure to thank the school governance councils who participated, the NFT leadership people and stewards, the district, especially Brenda Wilcox-Williams, and most of all, Marge Costa, who has really worked hard to bring this event to life. More details are on the NEF website. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes our public comments.
All right. Next item on the agenda is Superintendent's Report. Dr. Adamowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item tonight is a report of great importance. You recall around this time last year, the state of Connecticut issued its new accountability plan for the first time. This is the Next Generation Connecticut Accountability Plan. And at that time, the data reported on it, which we shared with you, concerned Goal 1, which was all the state assessment testing. And I said to you at that time that the second installment of this that was not yet developed, that would be put forth this year, was Goal 2, which was growth. All right? So the first time ever, we now have in front of you, and the subject of Diane Filardo's report tonight, both Goal 1 and 2, and a complete profile of Norwalk using the Next Generation Accountability Plan. This will be our benchmark going forward for measuring many of the goals and objectives in your strategic operating plan, many of those outcomes. And when I review our progress with you at your retreat this summer, I'll be referring to this report in relative to several of those outcomes in terms of how we did, whether or not our goals were met. Diane, as you know, is our Director of Assessment and Accountability. She is an expert on this, and she is going to attempt tonight to explain this to you succinctly in a few minutes, but there is a lot to cover, and by design, because this is a comprehensive look. It's based upon the Charlotte Mecklenburg balanced scorecard, and it's designed to measure a district holistically, not just on state testing. But you will find, as Diane goes through this, that there is a disproportionate weighting of student growth, particularly the lowest performing students. So Diane, if you could, this is a report that Diane has presented at several levels within our school district and to our principals, and pleased to be able to review this publicly with you tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Adamowski. The 2015-16 accountability reports are used to track progress at the school and district level and also to satisfy federal and state requirements. And as Dr. Adamowski said, these reports include a variety of indicators. We're not only looking at.
And we've got one screen,
Ralph?
nothing moving.
Okay, I'll use this.
No, you try now.
We're not only looking at academic achievement, but we're also looking at a set of indicators. And here is a list of the 12 indicators. The first one we've actually been reporting on since 2011, and that's the performance index for math, ELA, and science. And if you can see the H next to indicator 1, that means that there's separate reporting for all students and also for students in the high need subgroup. The high need subgroup are any students that are English learners, that are students with disabilities, or students that qualify for free and reduced lunch. If students are in one or more of those categories, they're part of the high needs group. And this really focuses on Connecticut's commitment to close the achievement gap. And there are a variety of other indicators, such as academic growth. And as Dr. Adamowski said, this is the first year that the model has been completed and growth is being reported for all students and for high need students. Participation rates, that is being reported again for all students in high needs, for ELA testing, math testing, and science testing. There's a measure of attendance based upon chronic absenteeism. That's with the percent of students who are absent for 10% or more school days during the school year. That includes both excused and unexcused absences. The next two indicators, 5 and 6, have to do with college and career readiness. Indicator 5 is for access, the percent of 11th and 12th graders that have access to college and career ready courses, AP courses, IB courses, career and technical education courses. 6 is the percent of students that achieve benchmark on college and career readiness tests, such as the SAT, AP courses, ACT. Graduate indicator 7, on track in 9th grade for graduation. This is an indicator that affects both middle school and high school. For middle school, how prepared are students as they move on to high school? And high school are required by the end of 9th grade to have students have 5 credits in full year courses. And we look at the percent of those students that achieve that at the end of 9th grade. Graduation rate is the 4-year graduation rate, and in this report, we're looking at the class of 2015. Then we also look at the 6th year cohort graduation rate for high need students, and that's the class of 2013. The next indicator tracks the percent of students in the class of 2015 who enter a 2- or 4-year institution anytime up to 1 year after graduating high school. The physical fitness test, given at grades 4, 6, 8, and 10, looking not only at the percent of students that meet the health fitness zone standard, but also the participation rate of students. And finally, art access. What percent of our high school students participate in at least one course in dance, music, art, or theater? So for all of these indicators, there's points allocated for each, except for participation. Participation does affect overall reporting. For a school and district, it could have a negative effect if participation in any of the major content areas, math, ELA, or science, fall below 95%. So that's a picture of the 12 indicators that go into this report. Any questions on the indicators? This is part one of the accountability report for the district. The most important measure on this table, and I don't have a working pointer, is really at the bottom, and that's the accountability index. That index is the percent of total possible points earned on all indicators, and that's the accountability index. So in the state of Connecticut, a district can earn 1,350 points on all of those 12 indicators combined. And you see the points earned, the maximum points, it's highlighted. And we see that in the 2015 school year, Norwalk's accountability index was 72.7, which means they earned about 980 of those 1,350 points. Now, I just want to draw attention to the maximum point column. If you look at 1A all the way through to 1F for high needs and all students for ELA, math, and science, you see for each one of those categories, the maximum number of points is 50. Last year, if you looked at a similar report for 14-15, those numbers were, the maximum number of points was 100, because we did not at that point have a measure of growth, the percent of growth target achieved for students. Now, academic achievement across all content areas, the maximum number of points is 300 versus 400 for growth. What is the importance of that? You see the emphasis is really on raising the bar, in that the focus is now shifting away from just academic achievement. Certainly it is important, but the indicator that you get the most points for is actual growth, the percent of growth target achieved. And this just simplifies what we just looked at. At the elementary level, on the accountability report, you can earn up to 850 points. 82% of those points are just from the two indicators, the academic achievement and growth. But 47% versus 35, 47% for growth. Middle school, you can earn up to 900 points. 44% of those points are for growth and a third for academic achievement. So those two indicators alone make up 77% of all the points earned. And since students are only tested with the SAT once in high school, you really can't have a measure of growth. So academic achievement is about half of the points earned in high school, and 16% are for either the 4-year graduation rate or the 6-year cohort graduation rate. Now we're going to talk about the impact of the gap and also participation on the report. And this is part 2 of the report. Schools and districts need to have a minimum of 95% in all of those 6 areas. For ELA, both all students in high needs, math, all students in high needs, and science, for all students in high needs. If in fact one rate goes below 95%, the school or the district is penalized, and we'll see how in a minute. Likewise, we're looking at the gap, the achievement gap, using indicator 1 of the performance index is measured. The non-high needs students' performance index in one of the 3 content areas compared to the high needs index. And that difference is the gap. So you see in example 1, the ELA for non-high needs students, the index was 75. For high needs students, the index was 57.9, so a gap of 17.1. This year, the district had a gap outlier in ELA. And that gap outlier occurred because if you look at the gap at the state level, which was 16.5, our gap in Norwalk was significantly higher, 1 standard deviation above the gap in the state of Connecticut. In the other areas of math and science, and also in the graduation gap, we were below that threshold. But this year, our gap was an outlier in ELA.
And Diane, just to clarify for the board, a standard deviation is about 16 points, 16-point difference.
Right, if you think of the bell-shaped curve, and you're at the 50th percentile of the mean, it's to the right, so it's about 34% of the area. So essentially, about 16% of schools fall beyond that 1 standard deviation, so 16% of the schools potentially, if it was a perfect bell-shaped curve, would have that outlier gap in 1 or more of the areas. Okay? Now, how is this used? The gap outlier and participation. It's really used when we're categorizing schools. Last year, category 4 and 5 schools were identified. That was in March of 2016. Category 4 schools were newly identified turnaround schools and focus schools. And Category 5 were also turnaround and focus schools, but they were identified initially at the end of 2012, and they did not improve enough, so they stayed as turnaround and focus schools. So now we have the remaining schools, and this is the first time with our new accountability system that schools are categorized. And how they did this was they removed the category 4 and 5 schools from the mix, and they looked at the top 25% of schools based on that accountability index, the percent of total points achieved. So schools that had a high, the top 25% accountability index were in category 1. The lowest 25% were in category 3, and the remaining 50% were in category 2. Now, how does participation and gap outlier affect these categories? If you were named a category 1 or a category 2 school based on the accountability index that you achieved, and you either had a gap outlier in 1 or more of the content areas, or if you were a high school, when you looked at the 6-year cohort rate and looked at and you had a gap outlier there, you were dropped a category. So this, you're going to see how this comes into play now in the next slide in our district. You see our elementary schools in rank order by their 2016 accountability index. And in the column next to that, you see their school category. The next column indicates whether or not there was a gap outlier at the school or one of those 6 participation rates below 25%. So we're starting with a row 8 with an accountability index of 80-1. Row 8 would have been a category 1 school, but they had a gap outlier, so that dropped them down to a category 2 school. If you go down the list, the next school with a gap outlier would have had is Columbus, and they would have been a Category 2 school based upon the accountability index, but because of their gap outlier, they were dropped to a Category 3 school. Going further down the list, to Fox Run, with 68.7, they would have been a Category 2 school. Again, the gap outlier dropped them down. Likewise, Tracy School. Looking at our middle schools, the accountability index that were achieved at middle school, don't forget this is in testing that was done a year ago, in March 2016, all of those indices were not high enough to be a Category 2. So nothing happens. We do see that there were gap outliers, but they did not drop in category because based upon that index, they were a Category 3. At our high schools, Brian McMahon clearly qualified based on accountability index to be a Category 2 school, but in fact they were named as a focus school for math, and they have that designation for at least one more year. But Norwalk High, with the 72.1 accountability index, qualified as a Category 2, but because they had both gap, outlier, and some participation rates below 95%, they were dropped to a Category 3. So bottom line, we see, at the very bottom, you see our district overall accountability system again in comparison to the state, which you see we're very close to the state. The next slide just summarizes what we saw. Based upon the accountability index, the results of the gap outliers and participation rates, we did not have any schools in Category 1. We had 8 schools, Category 2, 8 schools in Category 3, and 3 schools in Category 4. Any questions?
I think,
Mike, did you have, I was just gonna.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can, I guess you can talk about these, we can just talk offline, about what those gap outliers at each individual school, what drove it, or was there kind of a constant theme between all of them?
Well, if you think about the district as a whole, we had a gap outlier for ELA.
Yeah.
So at the middle schools, when you see gap outliers, every one of them was for ELA. At Brian McMahon, Norwalk High, ELA. For Rowayton, the gap outlier was in science. At Columbus, it was in math. At Fox Run, it was in all of the areas. And at Tracy, it was in science. But primarily, at the secondary level,
Was ELA.
the gap was ELA.
So the work on, with Read 180. you
Now,
know,
this is prior to.
Right, exactly. So that should make a difference when we look at the test results from March 2017.
Correct, so hopefully that will, be reduced in terms of.
Great, next.
I think one of our goals looking at the future is to have schools in Category 1. And so if you look at Rowayton could be a Category 1 school if it could resolve the gap outlier between overall performance and high need performance. Marvin and Jefferson as well, that is remarkably high performance given their income level of students and the fact that they have no gap outliers. And those are 2 schools that conceivably can be Category 1 schools in the future if their current rate of improvement continues. And I think we just need to recognize the staff at all 3 of those schools that will be in the vanguard of improvement as more schools move up.
Now, this chart is attempting to compare Norwalk's district report in 2014-15 to 2015-16. And a lot has been going on with the development of this system that makes this comparison a little bit difficult to make in terms of looking at actual points. So we're looking at the percent of points earned instead. You really can't compare the ELA results for 2 years because of the major changes in the Smarter Balance testing between those 2 years. In 2015, ELA had a performance task. In 2016, it was eliminated. But when you look at math, you can compare the two performance indices, and you can see for all students and high need students, there's an increase. In terms of science performance, it was relatively flat. That's what those yellow arrows mean. Chronic absenteeism actually went up. So as a result, we had a smaller percent of points earned between the 2 years. Which was very good was the percent of students that were passing, reaching the benchmark on college and career tests, the SAT, the AP, went up. On track for high school graduation went up. And the 4-year, on track for, at grade 9 for high school graduation went up, and the 4-year graduation rate went up. But in the other areas, there were slight dips. Now, comparing 2015-16 Norwalk to the state, I mean, if you look down this list, there's really 20 entries in that table. And in 10 out of the 20 areas, Norwalk was higher than the state. Higher meaning a higher percentage of points earned. Key points here, indicator 1, which you know is the SPI, for high needs exceeded the state in ELA, math, and science. Indicator 2, for growth in all areas and high needs. Growth is only measured in math and ELA, and for indicator 2, we were below the state. For chronic absenteeism, our rate for high needs were lower than the state, which was a good thing, but our chronic absenteeism overall was higher than the state. Our 4-year graduation rate, higher than the state. Our 6-year graduation rate, slightly lower. So this just summarizes really where we exceeded the state in terms of percent points earned, where we were above the state, and where we were below the state. But another thing we need to look at is our district reference group. There are 9 districts in DERG 8, and you see Norwalk in bold there. And you see, based upon those 9 districts, Norwalk ranked number 2, second only to Stanford. And actually, Norwalk and Danbury were almost at a virtual tie. So you can see the accountability index for each one of the districts and the points earned. Now that looks very good, very promising. If you look at indicator 2, the growth indicator tells a different story. Remember, the growth indicator is the indicator with the most points. You can have a maximum of 400 points for indicator 2 between math and ELA for all students in high needs. And when you look at our position in the DERG, 1 being the best and 9 being the lowest, Norwalk is 7 out of 9 in ELA for all students and high need students. And in math, 6 out of 9 for all students and 7 out of 9 for high need students. So clearly this is an area where we can improve. If we can improve have a higher percent of target achieved for our students, that'll bring us up our accountability index and improve the overall result of the accountability report.
Eric?
Thank you, Diane. A couple of questions. I did want to start off with something that was a little alarming to me, and I noticed it earlier on in the presentation as well. I'll start off by saying it's exciting to see that we have this growth happening with our high needs students. That's exciting. Where my concern is the drop for the other students, which basically are the accumulation of everything else, our high-performing students, our talented students as well. So is this being looked at as we continue to balance this? I'm so excited, the growth we're getting with all of the initiatives we're putting forward to help our high-need students. But what are we doing to support our high-performing students? And the follow-up to that, and I might as well just lump it in, I was confused with the indicator 2, percentage of growth for the DIRG. How is it that Stanford ranks lower than us in both of those categories, yet outperforms us
In growth.
in overall in the just the accountability indices?
Yeah, because they outperform us in growth.
Oh, it's growth, but
The accountability index, overall, Stanford is above us. We're number 2.
no, I got that.
Right.
I'm talking about in this one. We're 6 of 9, and or
Because we're just looking at one of the 12 indicators. The accountability index, where we rank number 2 out of 9, includes all the possible points.
right. That was my question. So where did they outperform us?
They outperformed us, essentially in indicator 2.
I guess I don't understand this graph.
That list is not in order of performance, it's just an
Correct.
alphabetical list. So there, you can see we're at 57 and they're at 63.
That would be why it was
Yeah.
no longer numerically done. My apologies.
The other lists are all in,
I was very confused and thank
Priority
you for
order, and
that
that one they just
clarification.
alphabetized.
So back to then my first question, which is what are we doing for our high performing students to make sure that that drop doesn't continue?
Well, the model that was developed by the state of Connecticut for growth takes into account all students at every level. We have 4 levels under Smarter Balance and also for SAT, level 1 being the lowest, level 5. Now there's 8 categories. And we look at trends. The state looked at trends based upon the results of 2014 and 2015, and targets are set in each one of these categories. And the expectation is that the higher the performance, the lower the growth target. That's just the nature. So students that are in the lower levels of performance, they are targeted to grow more. And that's, by nature, that's what happened in 2015 to 2016 in this growth model and many other growth models that have been developed. And what are we doing in terms of making sure that our top students in the high level 4 range are being challenged? We have a great deal of work going on by Dr. Connor and the curriculum office to have higher expectations of students, to have rigor in courses and in the curriculum redesign. So when we should see the effects of interventions, the tier 2 interventions that are being offered in middle school. We should see some of that effect. The students are now being tested in 2017. By 2018, the curriculum revisions and the rigor that's being infused within those curriculum redesigns should take an effect, and we should see a higher, the core instruction being at a higher level. If you think of that pyramid, the SRBI pyramid, with tier 1 instruction, which everyone gets, the rigor of that needs to increase, and that really has been the focus of the curriculum department right now. Not just interventions, which are in place now for tier 2.
Right, yeah, because what I saw here in the number 1 indicator in 1A, 1C, and 1E, all dropping a considerable amount.
And that's for all students.
Right. So that includes, that's when you take our high needs and mix it with the general population. So seeing that number go down is really where I'm targeting this. I mean, it's great that the interventions obviously
Right.
seem to be working. It's that tier 1
Correct.
that is.
Let me see if I can make another try
Thank
at
you.
that, because when when the board developed its strategic operating plan, you saw data at the time that showed that our high-need students were not doing as well as the general population. Now, you know, a year and a half later, we have growth data, which we did not have at that time. And what the growth data suggests is that our high-need students are improving at a faster rate than the general population. And so, you know, I think you can say, okay, the effort that has been made in terms of introducing the Tier 2 and the Tier 3 interventions that didn't exist before is having an effect, a positive effect. But when you look at Tier 1, in terms of the non-high need students, the way you move that is, first of all, the students at the very top, right? These are the students who would qualify for the AT, or academically talented program. Their performance for as long back as we can see has been absolutely flat. And so that, we don't have an effective approach there. And that jumps out at us as the need to redesign that program so that those students can be growing as well. The rest of Tier 1, you know, what affects the average student really is the key. And generally the research is in three big buckets. One is instructional time. How much instructional time are you getting? And you know we're relatively short on that, particularly at the elementary level. Teacher quality, teacher effectiveness is the other factor, and curriculum. And as you know, we've made a start in curriculum, developing the reading and English language arts curriculum at the elementary level last summer. This summer, it's English and math or ELA and math at the middle school level. But this has been a big gap in our system that is going to take a number of years to close and to implement. But I think this data, your question, and this data reinforces upon us the fact that we need to work. We've been successful in Tier 2 and 3. We need to work in a much more robust and aggressive manner on the Tier 1 factors that affect the average student in the system.
Thank you, Dr. Adamowski.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay, this next item, I'm going to turn back to Ms. Keys, who is instrumental in the service that has been provided our students by the Lions Club relative to its KidSite program.
Thank you. I have some notes I just want to briefly read before I have our presenters come up. We're pleased, very pleased tonight to give some information about a program which Dr. Adamowski just mentioned called KidSite, which is actually a nationwide initiative of the Lions Club International. Just some background information, the Lions Club is an organization that's known for putting service first and foremost in our communities, especially in the areas of sight, hearing, as well as diabetes awareness. And as I'm sure all of you may know, we have a very active and supportive chapter right here in Norwalk. KidSite is a free service to the community. It's designed to help parents, as well as child care providers and educators, find and treat children's vision problems. The Connecticut program is funded by the Connecticut Lions Eye Research Foundation under the Lions Eye Health Program. Early detection of any type of vision problems is key and instrumental and very important, as poor eyesight can impact a child's ability to learn. With that in mind, the program's #1 first priority is to screen children from 6 months to 6 years. To give you a little bit of background information how we came about this, actually Joan called me or emailed me probably back in November and reached out to me to offer and provide our Norwalk preschoolers, our youngest children here in Norwalk, with free, no cost to families, eye screening through KidSite. Under normal circumstances, many children would not have access to this routine vision screening until kindergarten, or even as late as 2nd grade. Because of this, we recognize this would be a valuable service to our very young students. Through KidSite and the Lions, we've been able to coordinate vision screening done by a professional for all of our students and our school-based preschools here in Norwalk. First place that we started, and Joan will go into more detail, is at our Norwalk Early Childhood Center. where we first actually started the screening. I'd also like to thank Dr. Adamowski for his support, and as well as getting this program implemented, as well into our buildings, as well as Joan Malinowski, who happens to be Norwalk Public Schools School Health Service Coordinator. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here tonight, but we want to give her our gratitude for her support in this, who really played a key role in this project. In a moment, I'm going to have Joan come up. Joan LeCount, who is the chair of the Norwalk Lions Club in Norwalk, who's here with us tonight, to say a few words and have a presentation about the program. Joan will also be coming up with Dr. David McCullough, who is a local Norwalk ophthalmologist here, who has also dedicated his time and service and has been volunteering with this program for quite some time. I personally want to thank both of you and everyone else that's been involved in this program, because it's really shed some light on things that we need to do differently here, and I think moving forward we can have this program and continue to grow this in Norwalk. So I'd like to have Joan and Dave come up and share some words with us.
Thank you, Heidi, for that. Thank you, everyone, for inviting us to come. Dr. Adamowski, thank you for your help in getting this done. We in the Lions Club, this is a nationwide initiative, the Kids Site program, and in Connecticut, it has really taken, the Connecticut groups have really tried really hard to get this going. They raised last year over $100,000. Each one of these machines, the machine and the printer that go with it, cost $10,000. There are now, actually they raised $300,000. There are almost 30 of these units in the state of Connecticut. Some school systems are doing more than just the preschools, and I've actually started working now with the private preschools here in Connecticut. I did, hang on, let me just get one here. I do have some brochures here.
Joan, could you just push the cover of that laptop
Yeah, the
down?
microphone down too. If you
There
need
you
to
go.
move the microphone
Thank you.
too. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, I did want to thank Joanne Malinowski was wonderful to work with. She took this upon herself as the school coordinator, and she really, she came with me to every school. We started at NECC, we did Brookside, Tracy, Naramaki, and Fox Run, all of whom have preschoolers. We tested a total of 128 students, 106 passed, 19 were referred to a doctor, and 3 of them we couldn't finish because they wiggle around a lot. And you have to sit still, you only have to sit still for 2 seconds, but when you're 3 years old, that's not easy. So we did, and it was really a wonderful experience. The little ones are adorable. They, their parents were really appreciative of the effort. We even had a parent who brought in a 9-month-old because she said, well, if my older one's doing this, I'm going to bring the baby, and that was fine with us. We have done this at the Pancake Breakfast at the Norwalk Inn, and now we're working on the private preschools in Norwalk. Dave has the camera here, if anyone would like to see what the parents get. Basically, what the school does first is they send out a permission slip to all the parents. I don't think it is yet a part of the permission things that parents sign at the beginning of the year, but that would be one way to not have to deal with that step. The parents sign the permission slip, we get the students' information. We only put their student number in, we don't maintain their name. Everything goes right back to the school. We only keep some information in the camera that stays on file as to the numbers of students and the age of the students that we screened. And then the students each get a printout to take home, and it will show all the major points, Dave can explain this better, that they're tested on and what they didn't pass on. And we're looking forward to working with Joanne next year. I hope she's here again next year to help me because she was a big help. And I did want to say one other thing. I was reading some stuff this week online. There is legislation being discussed currently in Hartford to add this type of screening as an option in schools instead of just the charts that are being used right now. Because I guess it has to be authorized or it has to be accepted by the state as a a testing level. I believe that that will actually make it easier for everyone to do this. I know some school districts are starting to privately buy these themselves, but they're looking at the state level, we've all been asked to contact our legislators to say that we would like to have them vote in favor of that, and then it's supposedly going to be added, if it passes, to the list of approved devices, so that when the school wants to buy one or an organization wants to come in with it, it's something that the school is familiar with, that the nurse can just do the whole class in the time it would take to do one kid, quite honestly, because it takes 2 seconds. So, who would like to be our volunteer? Do we have a
I
volunteer?
think the good doctor might want to.
No. No,
Oh, you go ahead, you go ahead.
Okay.
Let me talk a little bit. I'm Dave McCullough, I'm an ophthalmologist right across the street over here at 111 East Avenue. I want to reiterate something. The rate limiting step for doing this is the consent form. So if we can get a consent form that will, at the beginning of the year, then we don't have to worry about which kids have been consented and which don't. So if everybody's consented, I don't know if you guys get consent forms like in a blanket way at the beginning of the year, we could then just do every kid, because literally you can do 50 kids in 15, 20 minutes. It's really fast. So this is all based on technology. Technology is awesome. I will guarantee you that in the next 10 years, all of us might get our eyes examined with machines like this and get our glass prescriptions and our contact prescriptions. This is the wave of the future. And this is why we've been so happy to have this. First of all, the patients, the kids, are the ones that really need this because they're the ones at risk for amblyopia. And amblyopia is a really difficult thing to diagnose because most of these kids have a good one eye. One of their eyes is good. The other eye is bad. And they have normal vision. They don't have depth perception very often, but it's very hard to find these kids. So these cameras use, you know how when you take a flash photo and you get the red reflex from the pupil, that's what these cameras use, but they use it in like an infrared way, and it bounces a signal back out of the eye that tells you then what the prescription for that kid is. It also tells the alignment of the eye. So if a kid's got a cross eye, the camera shows that as well. So we're kind of screening for multiple things all within a few second, essentially pictures what the way this thing works, looking at those red reflexes. So I got to thank you guys. Heidi, you brought us to our wonderful superintendent who then got us in the door. And, this is what we're kind of doing Lions Club for, and so we'll do this all day long if you guys will let us. And it really makes us feel good, and it's good for the kids ultimately too. So that's all I have to say. Any questions? Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that. Thank
Doctor, do you have the capacity to do to test every child in the school system?
Easily. We have, Joan by herself did 127 people, and she could have done 3 times that in, literally like another half an hour in each place. We have a woman who comes down from Walcott who has screened like the whole county. I mean, it's unbelievable. So if you have a really good organization, some of the schools versus, just have the kids lined up and you just literally go bang, 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 and you can literally do it that fast.
And there are enough machines to do that?
Yeah, well, we have 30 machines, so it's just a matter then of parceling them out. In fact, Stanford Lions Club wanted to buy 3 of these machines, and I said to them, you only need 1, and there's other people that can, if that one breaks, you got other people you can borrow from. So,
Can I address that question?
yeah, go ahead.
There's something I did want to add to that. The Waterbury school system has done the entire school system. And it takes a week, and what they have done is, they just use the one camera. Joyce, the woman who was in charge of this for District 23, went up there, she spent the first day, and then she left the camera with the nurse and went back on the last day. There's no reason like one of us, it's very easy to use, except for when there's too much light. And she left it there for an entire week, and then they did the entire Cheshire school system. There are school systems that have done every single kid in the school. And they did Trumbull.
And it's pretty quick. You just tested me. I know the lighting here, but it's quick.
Yes.
And I would think with young kids, especially the lights they like, I mean, it's
And what
within
it does is,
seconds.
if you get the perfect lighting, you sit
Yeah.
there, you do it, it takes 2
Done.
seconds, you send it to the printer, and it goes bing, bang, boom. But they have, whole school systems have been done already, as I said.
So Joanne Malinowski, as you know, is very committed to this and has been
She knows the people in Trumbull who did this.
has been a big supporter of it, and certainly, you know, an admirer of your efforts. And I think we'd like to explore with you this prospect of you starting it in each school and having the nurses continue it out through the grades so that an entire school can be screened. The Lions are just such a great example of how asset-rich our city is, and you're certainly in the forefront of that for our children. We're very grateful to you for
And I will continue working with Joanne on
for
this.
this incredible volunteer effort that you put forth, which allow more children to have a successful education because they can see.
Very much appreciated. I mean, I think if we can get it, we can talk more about this and getting this in all of our schools.
Well,
but
we'll have a
it's-
meeting with Joanne, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about it a little more.
That would be great.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Last item on my report, the board is aware of this. I sent you something before the break, but I just wanted to announce publicly that now that the city has passed the 5-year capital plan, I guess we should announce that first. The city has passed the 5-year capital plan. I think Ms. Harris, Ms. Mosby, Mr. Meek, Mr. Barbas were at that very late meeting that culminated with a vote on the capital plan at about 12:20 a.m. on Wednesday morning. But all the time was not spent on that. The city had about a 3-hour issue before they got to us. So we're very appreciative of the mayor's support and the council's support at this point. And we are, as was indicated earlier, moving to the next phase of this. And that means developing the ed specs for 2 buildings, that are in the very first phase, the new school at the Ely site and the new school at the Ponus Ridge site. The purpose of the ed specs committees is to provide design parameters for the design phase that do 2 things, that will support the program and also provide for community use. And so with that in mind, there is actually a state Board of Education regulation on this, which I've consulted. You have a policy on this, believe it or not, from 1985. And that also provides guidance. And so following both of those, which designate the responsibility for this to the superintendent, I've asked a group of people in each case to assist me in developing the ed specs. We'll also have the assistance of our architect, John Ireland, in this regard. But I just wanted to read the names for the K-8 Bank Street College Intra-District Magnet School on the Ely site. This is the current Columbus program, moving to Ely in K-8. I've asked Deidre Davis, who's the Rudner Court Tenants Association president, to serve as a community member. Steve Ferguson, who is a resident and parent in the neighborhood and also a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Nancy Fuzesi, who is a teacher at Columbus School. Monisha Gibson, one of our partners, the director of the Odyssey Early Learning Center at the current Ely. Megan Hopkins, who is the chair of the Columbus SGC. Betsy McNeil, another partner, executive director of Grassroots Tennis, that we will be working closely with at this school. Elizabeth O'Mara, who is a consultant from Bank Street College. Bedard Thomas, the principal of Columbus. Nabil Valencia, who is a community member and the president of Latinos United, and Mr. Barbas as an ex officio member in his role as Facilities Committee Chair. This group will meet for the first time tomorrow evening, and we're looking forward to the kickoff meeting and their work forthcoming. The second Ed Specs committee that has been appointed is for the Ponus Ridge site. This is for the K-8 STEM intra-district magnet school campus. And as you know, this project involves some renovation of Ponus, as well as the construction of a K-5 lower school adjacent to Ponus to form a K-8 STEM campus. And I was pleased to elicit the support of the following people on these specifications. Chelsea Borsman, who's a teacher at Jefferson School, Nick Brophy, the principal of Jefferson, Augusto Cabrera, who is a parent at Ponus Ridge Middle School and also the designee of the Ponus Ridge SGC. Dr. Michael Connor, our Chief Academic Officer, will also serve on this one, given his STEM background and knowledge of other STEM schools in the state. Damon Lewis, the principal of Ponus Ridge Middle School. Tamara Mokas, who is the CSID at Jefferson. Donald Munt is the lead TTO, Teach to One math teacher at Nathan Hale. And it's anticipated that this school may be designed from the start with the TTO labs as opposed to separate math rooms. And Don will be a tremendous asset in how to do that. Zeel Patel is a kindergarten parent at Jefferson and also heads up the PTC STEM partnership at the school. She has a STEM career herself. Joe Perella, who is a parent and one of the Ponus Ridge designated SGC representative. Sandra Peterson, who is a science teacher at Ponus Ridge Middle School. Ralph Valenzizi, representing the T in STEM. And again, Mr. Barbas, ex officio, is chair of the Facilities Committee. The initial meeting of this group will be Thursday evening in the library of Ponus Ridge Middle School. So I'm looking forward to working with these groups to advise on the formation of the Ed Specs. We anticipate that there will be 3 or 4 meetings of each group during the remainder of April and May. And I will be presenting to you in June for your adoption the education specifications for both schools. This takes the form of your requirement to adopt the EDO 49 form, which would be done at your June business meeting. That, along with the city's approval of funding, which has already occurred, and another form that they have to file, will constitute our application and put us in the queue for state priority funding for the matching funds in December. Related to this, we also had our conceptual meeting with the Department of Administrative Services personnel on Tuesday morning, yesterday morning. Mr. Hamilton and I were there for the district, and Alan Lowe and Alicia King for the city, and also John Ireland. And I will be providing you with more information on that meeting in the future, but I'm mentioning it just to let you know that the ball is rolling, and we're in the kind of the last phase of the process prior to being able to develop and design our new schools.
Quick question, are the meetings posted somewhere, and are they public?
Yes, we can post them on, I mean, all the members have been notified, but we can post them on the website.
Okay.
Is it open to,
Yeah.
is it public?
Yeah, I mean, it's not closed, there's no reason to close it.
We wanted just to.
I mean, anyone who wanted to attend to observe the discussion could do that. But remember that legally, the responsibility is vested with the superintendent, so the committee is essentially providing me with advice, and the architect with advice as to what should be in the specs document.
Is there a chair for every committee, or is just kind of?
No, it's not that kind of committee. Again, this is advising us, so people will have different opinions of what, features the school should have. This is also going to be informed to some degree by the meeting that we had on Tuesday morning, because the DAS was very clear on the things that they were not going to reimburse. And this is getting tighter and tighter as the state bonded indebtedness has grown over the years. So, for example, one of the things they're no longer reimbursing, even at the 50% level, is auditoriums in K-8 schools, middle schools or elementary schools. And so this has implications for whether or not the ed specs include an auditorium for Columbus, which, as you know, had required one. Because this is very prohibitively expensive for the city if you're not even getting 50% of the 30% in terms of reimbursement. So again, these are all factors of things that I have to consider in developing the ed specs with our architect, and the good folks that have agreed to serve here will be providing input and advice, and in many cases expertise as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll move item to item 6, which is the consent calendar, item 1. Consent calendar consists of items 2A, approval of personnel, and 2B, approval of budget transfers. There's just a couple in the agenda tonight. Is there a motion to adopt? So moved. Second. That's Eric moved. Already seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, proceed to a vote. All in favor? And that's unanimously approved. Thank you. Item 7 is information and reports. Monthly financial report, Tom.
Okay, you have the March financial report in your package. As you know, we're now 75% of the way through the fiscal year and 70% of the way through the school year. In total, we have spent 66% of our budget, so we are running essentially on target where we would expect to be at this point in the year. Total spending through March is about 3.8% higher than at the same point last year. If you noticed, the month of March was high this year in the salaries compared to last year through the month of March. That's because there were three pay periods in March this year, while there were 2 last year. So that's really just a timing issue. Excuse me. In terms of the details, first series of accounts on page 1 is salaries. You'll see that we've made some corrections to the substitute accounts. In previous reports, we had some of the daily subs were in the wrong category, so we've corrected that. And now with the transfers that you made last month, those accounts are running about where we would expect them to be at this time in the year, at 67% expended in the case of the long-term subs and 73% expended in the case of the daily subs. Again, overall, the salary accounts are running at 64.5% expended, so we are expecting some turnback in the salary accounts. That turnback is a result of several things. One, we do have a number of unsettled contracts, so we would expect to end the year with some money there that would then be encumbered for the following year if the contracts remain unsettled as of June 30th. So that explains part of it. And then, of course, there is natural turnover in staff during the year, as well as some vacancies that may occur during the year. So all of those things together result in a favorable position with respect to salaries. Benefit accounts are running where we would expect them at this point. We still do have some additional payments to make to the insurance fund. You can see we've made about 50% of the payments, and there'll be another payment hitting shortly, and then a final payment made at the end of June for benefits into the insurance fund. On the professional and technical services accounts, those are running a little high, particularly the one that we are continuing to watch is the 330 account, where we're 75% expended. We are expecting to need to transfer some money into these accounts from other accounts that have available balances, particularly transfers from wage accounts as well as some of the non-wage accounts to cover through the end of the year for the contractual services in special education. As I've reported previously, under the 500 series of accounts, we are expecting that our special ed tuition, out-of-district tuition, is running pretty much on budget at this point, and we do expect to live within the $9.3 million appropriation for out-of-district tuition. So that's a favorable development compared to last year. Just backing up for a moment to the 400 series of accounts, which are property services. These are primarily related to the facilities department. You can see that we've spent about 65% of the budget, so that is, again, a favorable position given we're 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year. Also note that it's about 9% less than we had spent at the same time last year, so I think that is also worth noting that our total expenditures in this category are actually about 9% less than they were last year at the same time. In the supply and material accounts, which is the 600 series, I think the most important thing to sort of point out at this point is some of the major drivers here are electricity, oil, and natural gas, and we're now pretty much approaching the end of the heating season for the year. There will undoubtedly be some, bills for the last month yet to be paid in oil and natural gas, but we spent about 67% of the oil budget and 63% of the natural gas budget, so I do expect that there will be some modest turnback in those accounts, which again will be available to transfer into that special education contractual services line. And electricity at 72% would appear also to be pretty much right on target, which is one of our major non-wage accounts. And let's see what page am I? Okay, on page 7, really nothing significant to report on equipment or the other object series. So again, in total, 66% expended at this point during the year, which means we're basically on track.
Okay. Any questions? Artie?
Just a quick question, curiosity. How many of our schools are on natural gas compared to oil? Do you have a percentage?
Yeah, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'm sure Bill Hodell does, and I can get that for you. My recollection is...
Third of our buildings.
Third on gas?
Third of, yeah, are on gas, or eight schools or six,
For
7
some reason, I thought it was, there was a switch made several years back to allow us, in some cases, to
Well, there are dual
do
fuel.
dual fuel. So I would have to get the actual number for you. It may be a third, or it may be, as much as a half. I mean, some of our buildings are not located in places where there is natural gas available.
Tom, if you
but-
could get that and send it to the whole board.
Sure.
It's interesting.
But if I remember, Tom, I think all the schools that have gas are dual fuel, can switch back and forth. That only maybe, because I remember when we were working at hedging oil and gas prices.
Right,
I remember oil was a lot more important than gas.
right.
And then we have Jefferson that's all electric, believe it or not.
Really?
Yep.
1970s.
Seemed like a good idea at the time. It did. I can remember electric rates were so low at the beginning of the 70s. They felt that was the, and then right after they did that, we had the oil shock. Boom.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
All right, next is committee and representative reports. Heidi, what's going on in policy?
Right. Excuse me.
Watch your guard there, sorry.
Sorry. We had our last policy meeting, in April 4th on Tuesday, a month ago. We discussed, development of procedures for board notification of events. We're still in the process, of working on that. We're going to work with Brenda, Frank, as well as Ralph to kind of work on having procedures, not necessarily a policy, but some type of procedures to use. So we're still in the process of working on that. We also discussed policy and procedures for school signs. Probably about 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting with Frank Costanzo and I had a meeting with several members from Planning and Zoning, and we discussed signage, especially at Brian McMahon High School, so they're in the process of putting up an electric sign. Some of our other schools are also interested in that, so we want to, as a policy committee, work together with Planning and Zoning so we can work on implementing something in the future for our schools. We also are in the process of discussing the CAVE transgender report, which we will delve into during our next policy meeting, which will be on May 2nd as well.
Okay.
Oh, and also one other thing, I apologize. We also had a Norwalk Early Childhood Committee, which we're having every month, but we're also having subcommittees where we're kind of branching out and discussing different ways that we can reach families as far as early childhood. So I'm part of a committee that's working on getting the word out and how we can really form alliances with our families and get them more actively involved.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, no updates on negotiations at the moment. We'll talk about some of that in the exec session. Mike, facilities?
I think on facilities, Stephen said it all. That common council meeting last Tuesday was pretty crazy, but we had the stamina, and a bunch of us that were here stuck it out, and we watched the vote, and we were very happy to see the support and for our master plan to move forwards. And as Stephen said, there is an EdSpec committee meeting for Columbus tomorrow, and then one for Ponus the following day. So that process will get underway. And I don't know if there's some work we need to do. There will be a facilities committee meeting, I believe, our regular one, fourth of the month in April. There's some stuff Alan Lowe needs us to approve and push forward. We did hire the project manager. If you know that this isn't really under the BOE's auspices, it's really under the city. But, other than Bill Hodell and Alan Lowe, there really is no staff in-house. And when we did the big last construction program, the city of Norwalk did hire Gil Bain to be a project manager. And what's nice about this position is usually there'll be a part-time person initially, and as the projects ramp up, they'll add more people to the team. So I was on the committee that there were 3 finalists for the RFP that city issued, and we did hire a company, and this gentleman's on board, and they'll be, I think, working in the building and working with Alan and to a lesser degree with Bill Hodell as we move forward. So that's on facilities. Since Brian's not here, oh, did you have a question, Sean?
Who's the company?
I can't remember. It's some acronym. It's CSC, something solutions. Do you remember? There were 3 companies. One was a big, Colliers was one of them, and then there was a small one, almost a one-man shop, and then there was this company, I want to say it was called Creative Solutions. I'll look it up, and when we're finished, I'll tell you. I have the guy's name as well. I just don't know it by heart. And secondly, I'll just talk about, since Brian had to leave, as he's an accountant, and you know what happens at midnight tonight. In terms of the Finance Committee meeting, we just had a special meeting tonight before this board meeting to discuss 2.0, the health insurance option that we are considering. The issue is when the city approved our budget, they basically made an assumption that we would be able to sort out our insurance. And, initially, we thought we needed about an $8.6 million increase to cover our insurance increases because claims had come in so much higher this year than the previous several years. Our insurance consultant, Bob Lindbergh, has reworked the numbers as claims since November haven't continued growing quite as aggressively as they have been, such that the 8.6 is now, I believe, about 6.6 if we stayed on our current self-insured plan. We did discuss what going to 2.0 would do, the savings it would generate for the Norwalk Board of Education, as well as the savings that different bargaining groups would experience because their copay would be less, and it's not a high deductible plan, which requires a contribution to a health savings account. So, and in fact, this 2.0 plan, which is a state plan, they give you incentives to do all sorts of things. So if you partake in this plan, I mean, it's kind of a great plan. More insurance companies, but if you do preventive visit to a doctor, get a vision exam, a cholesterol screening, a woman has a mammogram and a pap smear, and a man has a colorectal cancer screening at given points in time, those are all free. And if you partake in those, you don't have to pay any deductible. So we estimated roughly, we didn't have hard numbers, and it really varies by bargaining group, but a typical employee, let's say a teacher who gets insurance coverage, would save close to $2,500 a year by being under 2.0.
And that's the average about?
That was roughly, yeah.
Okay.
It really varies whether you're a full family or an individual and which bargaining group you're in. But, you know, we looked at the numbers, and I think we figured about $2,450 for a family that was a member of the teachers union.
And what about if it's single, if it
was
just curious
single,
to
I
know.
can give you a slightly better number.
So family's about $2,500.
Yeah, and I think single would be about maybe, let's see, did we do the math? Maybe 1,500. I think not quite 50, no, about $1,200 for a single. So those would be the savings there. You get also certain benefits that you wouldn't have otherwise in terms of all this free preventative care is what they call it, or health enhancement program. So we did discuss if somehow our bargaining groups did not want to go on the 2.0 plan and stayed with our current plan, you know, we would have to find cost reductions of about 6.6 million, or actually it was more than that, it was 7.3, what was it?
Just to clarify on that, it's the 6.6 would be in addition to the 1.3 we already need to reduce, so we're looking roughly in the neighborhood of $9 million.
And
$8 million math, sorry.
6.6, 1.3, you work for a bank.
I don't have my calculator, forgive me.
But, and so we did talk that, you know, our single biggest source of expenses is headcount, and it could result in a headcount reduction on the order of 75 plus employees if it came to that.
And if I could just jump in and follow up on that as well, you know, what we're immediately looking at right now is the reduction of the 1.3 million, which is the known reduction we're facing. Tom did mention that there's a rough number coming from transportation that we can save around 500,000, which leaves us with roughly 800,000 left to go. Now, that number unto itself is not something that would have a large impact, if any impact, in reduction of force of our individual employees, our teachers, or anybody working for the district. So that is obviously what we are still looking for, but we have some discussion to go on that as where we're at. So.
Okay. Good, thanks. Artie, any reports?
Yeah, athletics, I think a week ago I sent all of you a picture of the field over at Brian McMahon High School. They're turfing it, and it should be completed by the end of April. I'm going to go over there this week and check up, see where they're at, because they were delivering the carpet last week, and I didn't get a chance to see it.
The grass is it's down.
Carpet's- it's
It's
down?
down. I saw it. I was at a game this weekend,
Cool.
and it was down.
Yeah, Joe told me it was coming that day in the afternoon, and they were going to roll it out right away. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Have some nice new fields over at Brian McMahon. Curriculum, we had a presentation by the police department, our last curriculum committee meeting. If some of you remember, back in July of 2015, we changed the name and the mission of Briggs to Norwalk Pathways at Briggs. And one of the reasons why is Marie Allen believed that it was a great opportunity for them to create pathways to careers. Some kids are not going to go to college, they're going to go to careers. And so it was a way that they can institute some new programs that will help these kids to find, their path in life. And when they did that, they started 2 new programs. One was the Fire Academy and the other was the Police Academy. And they've been very successful, and this is their 2nd year that they're doing the Police Academy. One of the things that they do, it's a 15-week course. Once a week, they go out there and they do boot camp. They run around, they do calisthenics and things like that. They also do mock pullovers, they take them on ride-alongs, they take them to court. They actually sit and talk to a judge. They go to jail. They go through the whole gamut of what a police department does. And it's, from what, the testimonies that we had from some of the kids were amazing, that they, a lot of them now see police in a different light. They don't see them as adversaries, but actually, community people who are involved in their lives, want to give them direction and don't want to arrest them. They really just want to give them some help and guidance. Some of the kids have already decided that they're going to apply and become a police officer. And so that's really exciting. So we're really happy, we're really glad to see it, and they're going to continue to improve it. And the neat thing about it is that the police department is paying for all their officers to come over. So we're really not paying anything. And the cost to us is about $3,000, but that just comes from a grant. And most of that money is going to transportation, when we take them to courthouses and different places. They also get, speaking of boot camp, they get uniforms. They get a boot camp type uniform, khakis and all that. So they also participate in some of the police ceremonies, the memorials that they have. So it's really exciting for them. So again, it was a great presentation.
That's great.
Yeah.
And for Sherelle, the company that won the RFP is Construction Solutions Group.
You were pretty good. I think you said CSG, CSC.
Yeah, I knew something. And the gentleman who will be representing them initially is Jim Giuliano, is the gentleman's name. And they're from somewhere upstate. I can't remember if it was like Meriden or somewhere between New Haven and Hartford.
Say, what is it again? Construction?
Construction Solutions Group.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes. Any reports?
Yes, from the planning, the plan of conservation and development, our master plan, we're gonna call it from here on out. I did receive an email from Steve Kleppen, our new Director of Planning and Zoning, that there were 6 applicants for the consultant that was going to help guide us in the initial stages to get us ready to start delving in. Of those 6, 4 were interviewed. No, 4 were, I have it right here. They did interview 4 firms, 2 were brought to the next stage, and then 1 was selected. The consultant we'll be working with is Stantec, and they've done some really fantastic work. I've looked at their website and their presentation and was very impressed. So where the subcommittee is at right now is we're just waiting for Steve Kleppen and his team to work with Stantec to develop our next stages so it can get approved by the council as far as, the RFP from the individual who is now going to be our consultant, and also how we can start really delving in and looking at the master plan to really bring it up to where it's working much better for all of the citizens of Norwalk, and not just this pretty stack of paper that we look at occasionally and point and say, that's our master plan right there. Yeah. So it is exciting, especially, as I mentioned, the work I did when I was on the BET looking at it with former Chairman Jim Clark. It's exciting to be able to be a part of a team that's going to look at revising it and coming at it with a perspective from the Board of Ed as well. It's good stuff. So excited. I'll keep you updated.
Okay. I think the city needs to look at that plan more like a strategic operating plan like ours is.
I like the way you mentioned that, Mike, and that was one thing that I do plan on.
Let's not just let's do some pretty drawings and put them on the shelf, but how make it an actual strategic operating plan for the city.
And just to comment on that, one thing I noted on our current master plan, it's a lot of nice things, but there really wasn't an overall plan. It's projects and niceties and improvements, but with no overall structure. So really seeing how it works for us and the success we're already achieving in the short time we've been following it is really going to come with a great level of respect to what we're going to hopefully develop for our city side. So, good. Again, keep you posted.
Good. All right. Next is board member announcements. Shirley, want to start us off? Nothing? Okay. Any announcements, Eric?
Yeah, actually, I was reached out to by the organizers of our STEM Expo, which will be taking place at Brian McMahon High School on May 13th, Saturday, also the day before my birthday. No applause needed, thank you.
Happy birthday.
It's the day that we get to remind everyone that I am still the youngest member of the board. So, in all seriousness, though, I was reached out to by the director of this organization, of this event, and they wanted me to be a judge. And I got the green light from work that I can have that Saturday off. So 10 to 2, I'll be there as one of the judges, looking at all of the fantastic work that our STEM curriculum is going to be doing. And also, I was reminded by one of our community members that I am actually going to be trying to attend. There is a Mother's Day celebration that is happening at South Norwalk Community Center. So there's a lot of really fun stuff going on with the community, both educationally and community organized-wise. And that event is taking place on May 6th at 7 p.m. And the young lady in the blue back there could tell you more if you want to know.
All right. Thank you. Artie?
Just a proud dad moment. My son graduates from the police academy next Thursday night.
Wow. Yay.
After 7 months of intense training, and he will be a Norwalk police officer.
Outstanding. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Mike? I had a chance to go over to Nathan Hale and see the Teach to One in action. With the principal and the teachers brought me in there, and it was really fascinating to watch them in this big room, you know, where they've got several stations set up, and it's a mix of, you know, regular direct instruction and then self-instruction, you know, you're listening to things on, you know, audio on your, while you're using your computer, and then they had group problem-solving things too, Principal Saki had me go around. He said, ask the kids stuff, you know, so I was getting down on my knee and talking to the kids about it. Some of them I actually recognized from my church, and they're smoothly going through and doing all this stuff. And I said to one group, you know, I went to this school. I graduated here in 1969, and you can see them doing the math in their head. And then I really knocked them for a loop when I said, you know, now we were using slide rules. Like, what is a slide rule?
Oh, goodness.
We had no computers. We didn't even have calculators when I was at Nathan Hale. I think we finally got calculators when I went to Norwalk High School. So they found that absolutely astonishing that anybody had managed to live for a day without a computer. But it was a lot of fun, very, very, very encouraging to see how enthusiastic the kids were at this. You know, this was not the typical sitting in a classroom and, you know, falling asleep at your desk type situation here. This was genuine interest and excitement on the part of the kids. So it was exciting to see. Heidi?
I'm not going to mention my year that I went to Nathan Hale, but kind of around that time. I'm excited to be going to the first ever conference, Sleep and Wellness, delayed start time, which will be in Washington, D.C. I'll be representing the board, and it'll be, I believe, next Wednesday and Thursday, so I'll be driving out to Washington and really learning a lot of statistics show that our high schoolers really need to have a later start time. So we're going to delve into that. There's a whole panel of teachers, doctors, dietitians, as part of the panel and discussing that. So it's a 2 full-day conference that I'll be attending. So I'm looking forward to learning as much as I can about that, hopefully bringing that back to policy, bringing it back to the board to discuss, and moving forward on that. So I'm excited to be part of that. Some great news, something other that I'd like to share, that Frank Costanzo and his wife Nancy recently had a baby girl named Emily Grace on April 12th. So we want to congratulate them on their new addition to their family.
Yeah, that's
Great news. So we'll give a little clap. Family. And I think Sherelle's going to mention this a little bit more about Little Crawl. I'll kind of.
I just want to thank Eric and Heidi for being a part of our Lit Crawl. This was our 4th annual Lit Crawl with the Norwalk Public Library. And first of all, I want to applaud Eric's birthday because it also happens to be my birthday.
There you go.
Yay! Makes it easy for all of us to remember.
That's right. And Eric's poem, Bells, bells stays in my mind. Eric read a poem by Edgar Allan Poe, who he calls E.A. Poe, and Heidi read by Jacqueline Kennedy. So it was a really nice night. Barbara would have been there to celebrate his birthday, but he was committed to something for Norwalk Public Schools. So, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I won an award recently, or not won, but I was honored by the Fairfield County chapter of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. I got the Dorothy Height Award, and I love her. I don't know if anyone knows her, but she's most known for being the person that convinced others to let Dr. Martin Luther King speak. So, just a big thanks.
Congratulations.
Delta Sigma
Bunch,
Theta.
wow.
Congratulations.
Yep.
All right, lots of good news. All right, so we'll now move on to item 8, which is approval of the minutes. First, I'm sorry, somebody? Oh, yes.
Mike, I know it's not the right time, but Saturday, it says an announcement bonus is partnered with the NFP. I'm sure you guys got all the emails about the first book. So
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
as a future bonus, I'll be there. So I invite you
Wait,
to
who was that? Eric.
Excitement over here.
We did.
I got you. I forgot to mention it.
I want to make sure that everybody would love to come down and source the 40,000 books when it's having delivered tomorrow. So come on down, and we have some kids that are excited to come. My after-school program is going to help us sort the books and stuff like that. So it'll be a real great opportunity to give back to the community.
I did forget to mention that I was going to be volunteering for that, at least in one shift, either tomorrow or Friday, to lend out. And I know we all got the invite to be there on Saturday, which I haven't responded officially to Brenda yet, but my plan is to be there as well for the actual event. So I'll do some work and then get to celebrate. So,
And it's a great event. I mean, all the everybody that's
It
put
is.
that together is wonderful. I know.
Locally here, but the teachers are in full support of it.
and for somebody that worked at both the library and Barnes & Noble, I think I'll be pretty well adept to helping you out in the task.
All right, excellent. Okay, so we will proceed to approval of the minutes. First is March 21. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Second, that's Eric and Artie, moving second. Any changes, corrections? Eric?
Got a few. Starting on the bottom of page 6. It mentioned that the vote for the solar was unanimous. That was incorrect. Mr. Meek did vote against that
That's right.
proposal, and the rest were in favor, to my knowledge.
Yep, I remember that. That's correct.
I'll do another easy correction. Page 11. I'm not sure how we missed this, but Mr. Kasimis definitely moved
Yeah.
to close.
Yes.
And yep, that's the one there, Artie. I gotcha. Mr. Kasimis closed the
Yes.
meeting, and I did second that. That is a fun little tradition we have
That's
around
right.
here. I did relish at the meeting when Mr. Kasimis was not here to close, and I got
You did get to make that
get
motion once he wasn't here.
But then just really quickly, well, hopefully quickly, page 9, the 6th paragraph, it was part of the board member announcements. I'd like to strike that entire paragraph. I did try to reword it, and I did present a revision of it that I did write up at work on my lunch break, which would state, instead of the paragraph written, strike that out completely and revise it with, Mr. Anderson stated that the policy committee will be discussing adding transgender and gender nonconforming students to the district's non-discrimination policy. He stated that aside from this addition, his hope is the policy will review all of the non-discrimination policies to find ways to improve the current standings and create opportunities to celebrate the diversity of the district. The biggest crux I had with that was transgender and gender nonconforming were not clearly stated, and then I just verbosed.
Okay, I remember you saying that.
So is that okay?
Any issue with that?
With striking it out or just adding in your addition?
Replacing it.
Replacing the
That.
current paragraph with this statement.
I don't know about replacing, because I thought it was about corrections.
It is,
I
because
mean, you
these,
can
the
add
statement there
if you
was
wanna add
100%
that.
incorrect to what I said. It was not what I had stated at that meeting.
Well,
Nor was the
should
second
we
one.
replace the first sentence? I think the second sentence was different, where I remember you talking about you're gonna be having that community conversation.
Nope, we're on the wrong paragraph, Mike. That's the 7th paragraph.
2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, sorry, my fault. I'm not counting right tonight either.
It's okay. It happens to the best of us.
All right.
The sixth paragraph was the one where I was expanding upon the policy.
Okay.
I don't think you're allowed to change your statement. I think you can correct it. I
You
think
can correct,
Yeah.
add that to.
that's the rules.
Or you can add.
Well, it's not, he's not saying he's changing it, he said that the minutes.
No, he
You
said
changed
he
it. I
wants to
think he's
strike
making
it
it a
out and
statement,
add
right?
that.
Well, he's
it's-
not changing his statement, he said he made a statement that didn't accurately get into the minutes.
Correct. The statement that was proposed in the minutes
You're right,
is
you
not.
you can't substitute a statement, say, well, I said this, but I want this in the
I
minutes.
thought that's what he said to begin with.
Well, yes, because I to strike the existing statement and correct it with the following. So it is a correction of what was actually stated at the meeting.
So which paragraph are we talking
It's the first time you see his name on that page. No, yeah,
Is it?
yeah.
about? Well, are you,
Third
we're under board member announcements?
Yes.
Third paragraph.
Oh, so you counted from the top of the page, I'm sorry, I was counting under board member
sorry.
announcements, that's all right. So kind of, reports, policy, non-discriminatory, students. Why don't we do this? Why don't we ask the secretary to look at the tape
Yes.
for that section and make sure that that paragraph's corrected to reflect what's actually on the tape?
That would be
There's-
fine with
then
me.
There's no ambiguity. All right? Good? All right, so that paragraph will be checked by the tape and corrected based on the tape. Okay, anything else? Sherelle?
Just a quick thing, if it isn't what he said, maybe it can be reflected in our minutes for tonight.
Well, it should be, yeah.
Obviously,
That's-
yeah.
It will.
So,
Yeah. When we make corrections to the minutes, they go in the next set of
Right.
minutes, so that would be in there. Okay? Any other changes or corrections? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, subject to those changes, please indicate.
Subject to the review.
Correct. Okay, so unanimous, okay, thank you. All right, and then finally is April 4. Motion to approve, Eric, second. Artie, any changes to the April 4 minutes? Artie?
I motion to adjourn. It says Miss Mosby motion to adjourn. And Miss Harris seconded.
Yeah, I was pretty sure I seconded that one. I'm not sure how that one even happened. Shirley got to close the meeting and then Sherelle said, I'm like,
Sherelle seconded.
Yeah, I think it was probably the two of them.
they wanted to make sure we're awake
Does
tonight.
anybody dispute that?
I was
think
looking
it's-
at them, I was like,
I can't remember any meeting when it wasn't one of the two of you.
we've always been, one of us has always been here, so.
All right. So with that correction, let's, all in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate. All right, opposed? Abstentions? Okay, minutes are approved. All right, next item on the agenda is a executive session for contract negotiations and administration. Heidi moves to go into executive session. Eric seconds. All in favor, please indicate. We are in executive session, and we will take our traditional 5-minute recess.